Yo, what's going on, everybody?
Good afternoon.
I know the screen looks a little different.
Good evening. The introduction is the same, where we just say hello from around the world.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How is everybody doing?
Yeah, hope everybody's enjoying their Tuesday, their post championship game Tuesday.
I know you were tuned into the games.
Of course. It's the rights to go to the Super Bowl. Gotta tune into those. And they were fun. They were thrilling once again. This season, this playoff season has been maybe the best collection of playoff games in the history, like of at least as long as I've been
At least
watching.
On the AFC side of things, man. I mean, the NFC games I feel like have been par for the course. There've been some comebacks
they've
and
been
stuff,
very good.
but
the
like
Rams-Bucs
those
game was very
AFC
good.
games from the divisional round to the championship round, both going to overtime and being nail biters. I mean, that I think
they've
is
been
the story
fantastic
here.
games. They've been fantastic games. I think they've been all fantastic. I mean, the Rams 49ers championship game was maybe not as exciting, but it was still a close game. It was still a well-fought game.
Yeah.
Maybe there wasn't like a thrill in there, but there were big plays. There
felt
were big
more.
not plays.
My point was that it felt more in line with some of the playoff games and playoff matchups that we've seen in past years, whereas the AFC matchups in particular have felt different. They felt different. They've been different.
Sure. I mean, lots of different intangibles on the field, lots of different things lots of big plays being made, lots of wow moments happening on the field.
Yep.
Back
and forth. I mean, back and forth in that Bills-Chiefs game. And then, I mean, the Bengals coming back from an amazing deficit.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Go Bengals, man. Joe Burrow played outstanding.
Joe Burrow played outstanding, but lost in the talk about Joe Burrow is the fact that defense stepped up. And I know that's not something that we talk about on a fantasy football live stream or, just in general. We're talking about the skill position players.
Now.
But that defense shut down Mahomes in the second half.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes had the worst half of football that I think.
I believe he had a quarterback rating or something of 0.
It was like 1.
Yeah, and it was 100 in the first half, and then 0 in the second half, to the point where people were speculating whether or not there was a concussion involved somewhere in there.
Yeah, Mahomes had the worst half of football of his NFL career.
Yes.
Like, that is the worst we have seen. We have officially seen Mahomes at his worst. It took a long time to get there, and not that I was, rooting for it or anything, but it was like, wow, Mahomes has been bad this second half. And yeah, between that and the Bengals playing well on defense, here we are, who day.
And Evan McGoatson, your boy.
Evan
you called
McPherson,
that
man.
a long way off, so I want to give you props for that.
He is the next. He's going to be on a lot of fantasy football teams
He's Justin Tucker moving forward.
Yup. I foresee high ownership for Evan McPherson for the next 10 years.
Because name another kicker where it was like, I want that guy.
Like, this dude's awesome. It was Justin Tucker. It was
right.
I remember watching. It was, I think, a Monday night or a Sunday night game for Baltimore. I don't want to. I'll this is just all I have to say is when I first saw Justin Tucker, that was the last time I saw a kicker and thought to myself, who is this guy? You feel that way with Evan McPherson. Yep.
And he plays on one of the most high-octane offenses in the NFL, which bodes well for his production moving forward. They're all young. They're all productive.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's going to score a lot of points. He's going to be a great kicker for fantasy teams moving forward. So, yeah, a lot of exciting football. It is the Rams and the Bengals officially in the Super Bowl. So congrats to all 7 Rams fans that are out there. And Cincinnati's coming to California. So,
and it's been a long time since hasn't it been a long time since the Super Bowl didn't involve Tom Brady? Mr. Retired.
I mean, 10 Super Bowl trips in a 22-year career. Good.
If I was wearing a hat, I'd take it off.
Yeah, good segue to just to give Tom Brady the flowers that everybody's pouring out for today. But we have officially seen the greatest of all time. Hang up the cleats, and it was a hell of a ride. It impacted a lot of people. It attacked he had an impact.
I mean, it was
it
wasn't that it spanned one generation or 2 generations. It spanned 3, maybe 4.
Decades. Yeah.
I mean, he was in the NFL since we were. I mean, when did he get drafted?
I was just getting interested. It was like 01.
There you go. We were like 10, 11 years
2000.
old.
I think it was 2000. I think it was the year 2000 he got drafted. So, well, that would make sense. Yeah, it's the year 2022, or 22 years in the league. So 2000. Math. Yeah, I mean, he didn't just impact the franchises he played for. You can't tell, when I say you, I mean you, everybody, you, me, us, all of us. You can't tell us the story of your fandom of football without Tom Brady, most likely.
No, it was particularly pertinent for me being a Bills fan for a long time. He was in the division. He ruled the division. There was no way getting over him. I mean, I can't remember how many conversations I'd had with you before we started this pod, before this pod was even an idea in our brains, about how I wish that the Bills were playing in a different division and didn't have Tom Brady to contend with every year. And it was real.
Yeah. For 20 years, basically, for 2 decades, there were 3 fan bases that knew going into the season we're probably not winning the division. Just goes to show you. Then that's just the division. Obviously, he had major rivalries develop with the Colts, with the Broncos, with the Steelers, and then he played the entire NFC East in the Super Bowl and in the playoffs in general.
I believe he was undefeated against 6 to 7 franchises throughout his career.
Yep, that sounds
about crazy.
Right. Yep,
that's
crazy.
He
has more Super Bowls than any franchise. The entity in the NFL with the most Super Bowls. I won't include NFL championships because that we're predating ourselves. That's not the modern era. The most Super Bowls in NFL history is not a team, it's Tom Brady. So I feel like we've said enough here, just giving Brady his flowers. Hats off to a Hall of Fame career. There were times where we hated you.
But then I feel like that changed when he left and went to the Buccaneers because he was separated from Bill Belichick. So now we were kind of intrigued. Was it Bill Belichick the whole time or was it Tom Brady? And I think it's become evident that it was a mixture of both. It was mostly Tom Brady.
It's become clear.
Tom Brady kind of redeemed himself in at least my eyes. I didn't hate him watching him play on the Bucs. That entirely has to do with the fact that he was out of my division. But I don't know. It just felt like... I gained more respect for him when I saw him play the way he did on the Bucs.
Yeah, it felt like a release a little bit. It felt like... It was like you got to a point where I'm just watching greatness and I might as well just enjoy this because I don't know how much time that I have left of watching this, and that's, lo and behold, this turns out to be his last year. So hats off to Tom Brady. Yep. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers still have a pretty good roster top to bottom, so they're going to be an interesting team to watch this offseason. Obviously the big likely departure appears to be Chris Godwin. He can't play on the franchise tag 2 years in a row, so he is a full-on free agent. unrestricted and all that. So his landing spot's going to be very interesting, and we are going to tackle the wide receivers twos that we have, our very early wide receiver twos for 2022 today. Our last pod last Thursday, if you care to check that out, our last live stream, we went through wide receivers 1 through 12. John and I had very similar rankings, a couple differences.
We basically had not 11 out of the 12 people same people in much the same order in the top 12. And we talked about it a little bit at the end of the last live stream that this is where, for the most part, our rankings are going to probably diverge from one another. We're gonna have a little bit more. We're gonna have a few more disagreements on our rankings. A little bit more parity,
maybe say when we get to around to like number 17, 18. That's probably around where the discrepancy is. But Chris Godwin will be in there, no doubt, somewhere for both of us. I have to imagine that's one thing we can agree on. Just to wrap up the conversation about the Bucs, but still,
the Bucs, the skill position players are a worry to me for looking at the Bucs. I mean, you got Mike Evans, you lost Gronk, you lost Leonard Fournette, you lost, a ton of people there. So it is something to speculate on.
They didn't lose Fournette, or you mean to injury, or?
No, I just didn't. I mean, it's that whole situation is up in the air.
Oh, right. The situation is up in the air. Yes.
Like Fournette, free agent. Rojo, free agent. Gronkowski probably not going to re-sign. You already mentioned Chris Godwin. AB, no.
That's not
so. Yeah, I mean, are they moving forward with Kyle Trask? There's a whole bunch of questions there, and we will probably get into that a little bit later on in this live stream and later on in the offseason. But let's dig right into these rankings.
Sure.
Who do you have going into 2022 right now as your wide receiver 13?
So I think you had this guy in your top 12. So we're kind of just like doing a little bit of cleanup here, because if these guys don't fall in our top 12, like I feel like the top 15 is generally like, that's where it's like, it's all the same guys. So I think we're doing a little cleanup here. I have DK Metcalf at 13.
Okay.
Somebody who I
have him at 13 too. He was not in my top 12.
Oh, he wasn't in your top 12. Okay. So he's right outside it for both of us. Just missing, just as a reminder, in some way, shape, or form, John and I had for the top 12 Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Deontay Johnson, and Keenan Allen. I think there was one where we differed, where John had DeAndre Hopkins in the top 12. I have Jalen Waddle in the top 12. So that's the 12 that we have. And if you want to call it, 14, or because we each have one different player then, or 13, excuse me. So there you go. Just to give you an idea. So Metcalf is a 13 consensus for both of us. This could go either way. As far as does Metcalf, is he able to crack the top 12, or does he fall a little bit? Because there is a very real possibility that Russell Wilson has played his last snap for Seattle. So again, this is going to be a team that is impacted by the expected quarterback movement this offseason. So we don't know what's going to happen with DK Metcalf, and we have no idea who he's going to be catching passes from. In a very weird stat this year, DK Metcalf was, by the numbers, maybe this got changed, or maybe this was skewed a little bit by the last game of the season against Detroit for fantasy purposes, week 17, when they clicked for 3 touchdowns. But DK Metcalf was a better player statistically catching passes from Geno Smith than he was from Russell Wilson.
Yeah, so I got that in my notes here too. He was wide receiver 12 on the year, wide receiver 4 from weeks 5 to weeks 8, and those were the weeks that he played with Geno Smith.
That was when Russ was missing time. Yep.
Right. So the reason why I have him ranked at 13 is because, yes, there isn't some uncertainty with Russell Wilson, but he should still have the best years of his career ahead of him. He's only 24 years old. He finished wide receiver 12 in 2021, wide receiver 20 by average points per game, because he was a high variance wide receiver.
Or it had to do with for whatever reason this year.
Yeah,
they weren't on the same page. Russ and DK were not on the same page. So yeah, there's almost like optimism here in DK's down year, because you look at that and you think, well, there's room for growth for DK Metcalf. And we've already got him right at the edge of being a wide receiver 1 anyway. So,
yeah, and I know Lockett is signed there now long term for the next few years.
For me. It's not
and
a problem
not a problem for me either. They just drafted Dwayne Eskridge, who's an absolute nothing, and I don't really expect much from him in his career. But I don't expect them to double up on another wide receiver high in this year's draft. So DK Metcalf's role should be solidified. He was the wide receiver 7 in 2020, wide receiver 32 in his rookie season. I mean, we all know what DK Metcalf is. We were probably a little bit too high on him coming into this past year. His wide receiver 7 finish in 2020 had people excited.
Right, he was being drafted as an easy top 12 receiver last year.
He was being drafted top 6 by some people.
By the end of the second round, it was where it was like you might start to see him go here. That faded a little bit, but
it faded a little bit. But I feel like DK Metcalf at 13 is like a sweet spot for him. That's perfect.
I think this feels exactly where he needs to be, because there's room for growth here, even if he loses his quarterback. So,
yep.
So there you go. DK Metcalf feeling fine about him and his chances for 2022, regardless of what happens in Seattle. Who you got at 14? I went first for 13.
I have Waddle here, the guy that you had in your top 12. And I have him here and not in my top 12, despite a really, really good rookie season where he finished as the wide receiver 21 and a half PPR, wide receiver 23 in points per game. I have him at 14 and not in the top 12 because, he had a lot of help. They didn't have a running back pretty much all year. They didn't have, Gesicki was hot for the first 8 games and then he fell off. Devontae Parker was either injured or pretty much non-existent while on the field. And Will Fuller wasn't involved at all because he never saw the field.
Nope.
I expect them to go out and try to attack wide receiver 2 in the offseason, whether that's through the draft or through free agency. And I expect them to either re-sign Gesicki or try to fill in that tight end 1 role with somebody. I don't think they move to Hunter Long all the way, coming off a pretty much a lost rookie season. Because of that.
He's a 3rd round.
Right. Because of that, Jalen Waddle ranked based on talent. Yes, I believe. Top 12, viable for him. But I think he's going to take a step back this year because we know that not too much of a step back. Not a step back. I think he's going to basically plateau because he doesn't have, not from a talent perspective, but he doesn't have the best quarterback in the world. We all know that. Tua isn't one of the best quarterbacks in his division. If you were to poll people, they would probably say Tua is a quarterback 2. And they're going to go out and get more weapons to surround him with. And while that does help him to a certain extent, it will take away targets, which is something that he relied on. And because of that, I think he's going to hover around that wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 2 borderline versus really stepping into wide receiver 1 territory. So that's why I have Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 14.
Okay, and that would still be a slight upgrade from this year, finishing as a wide receiver 20.
Yes.
Now, he did end up on the COVID list this year, but so did everybody else. But just, I guess that's
but in points per game, he was 23. So that's why I stick that stat in there so that you kind of take that out of the equation.
Got it.
Even without the COVID weeks in there, he was a low-end wide receiver 2 in his rookie season, which is super impressive. So I think he can finish as a high-end wide receiver 2 next year.
Right, he had stretches of wide receiver 1 performances, so there's so there's hope there. You have him at 14. I had him in my top 12. So this is actually where I have DeAndre Hopkins, who you have in your top 12, but I have slightly out. So we're kind of we're putting the pieces together in this top 15. That's kind of how I predicted.
Yeah. And if anybody out there in the chat, anybody that's listening wants to comment, throw something in the chat, man. It's all blank, but keep going.
True. Well, I guess we could put our rankings in there. Or I don't know if we can. Anyway, I have Hopkins at 14. Just a little bit of, we talked about his excellence on the last pod and how he's a year in, year out, not just wide receiver 1, but like a top 5 wide receiver. That didn't happen this year. Injuries took their toll in the second half. There was some significant, there was a drop in touchdown production. Is what I was trying to say. I don't know why I struggled to say that. But most of DeAndre Hopkins' production came in the form of big receiving yardage outputs in the beginning of the season, which is great. You'll take that.
He was Julio Jones before he got injured, basically.
Yeah. Ghosts of Julio Jones' final years in Atlanta is a good comparison for the first half of Hopkins' season last year. Went down due to injury about a month before the bye week, maybe I think week 9, and I think he returned for 1 game, and that was it. Maybe he didn't even return for 1 game. I
think he returned. He just didn't do too much. He returned for 1 game, I believe.
1 game, yeah, and then it was back on the shelf because he wasn't right. So that's my pause for not having Hopkins in the top 12, because if he were 25, then I'm not worried. He's going to be 30. So while I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt as putting him in the top 15, because when healthy, there's no way you can't rank Hopkins lower than a wide receiver 2. And this would be on the higher end of that at that. But the injuries, he suffered some injuries in 2020 as well. So I'm just starting to wonder if that's piling up a little bit. That's why I have him at 14 and outside the top 12.
But despite going on a little bit of a touchdown drought, he was still wide receiver 10 while he was healthy early in the year.
Oh yeah, he's still a wide receiver 1
when he can make it onto the field.
Right, when he can be on the field. So that's why I can't put him at wide receiver 10. I got to knock him down a few pegs.
Okay, that's fair. And that was your wide receiver 14?
That's my 14. Yep.
All right, who was your 15?
So we just got done talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and there are a lot of question marks about what's Tampa's offense going to look like sans Tom Brady and probably sans Chris Godwin. I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be the Mike Evans show in Tampa Bay. Mike Evans rounds out my top 15, is 15th for me for way too early 2022 redraft. This is simple. Mike Evans, year in, year out, goes for 1,000 yards, and he has 1,000 receiving yards every year of his career.
He's a wide receiver 1. He's a back end wide receiver 1 every year.
Yeah,
and
he's
this
back
year,
end wide receiver 1. There's a
this
little
year
bit of
he was a high end wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and I think there's a chance for that to. I think there's a chance for that to stay that way with upside. I'm a little worried already that I have Mike Evans too low. Mike Evans had better statistical seasons in Tampa before Tom Brady got there. His numbers are actually not as good as they were with Tom Brady.
I wouldn't say that. He was wide receiver 12 in 2019 with Jameis. He was wide receiver 10 in 2020 in his first year with Tom Brady, and he was wide receiver 6 this past year. Now, I know before that, he had, when he was 25, when he was playing in 2018, he did have higher finishes there too than 12, but he also had some lower ones. He had some years where while he did break that 1,000 yard mark, he finished more wide receiver 16, wide receiver 17. Am I projecting that?
Yeah.
I have him ranked wide receiver 17. I do.
Okay. Not too far away, but I have him a little higher at 15.
I do think some regression is coming. I don't expect it to be a lot. I think it's enough. I mean, a regression, I'm talking about from wide receiver 6 to wide receiver 12. Right.
Yeah. I'm just operating that the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is not going to be either Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask. They're gonna go get a veteran who is good enough to pepper Mike Evans with targets, and that's why I think he's got plenty of room to grow.
I kind of feel like, talking to you, I have my ranking of him being wide receiver 17 is probably a little low too, because if you look at coaching staff pass attempts year after year after year,
Bruce Arians
hasn't finished less than pass attempts at 7
They throw the ball.
Going back to, Carson Palmer in Arizona, he has finished in team passes per year no worse than 7th.
Yeah,
going back for pretty much as long as he's been a head coach.
We're too low on Evans.
We're a little bit too low on Evans. It really doesn't matter that.
Be in on Mike Evans this year.
It really doesn't matter that the quarterback situation is going to change. He's quarterback agnostic. It doesn't matter. He's going to pick up yards.
Yeah. If you play best ball, or if you just like looking at 2022 rankings as soon as you can possibly look at them, the consensus is probably too low on Mike Evans. I say bye.
And we're gonna roll out we're gonna try to roll out this new technology that we've been working on. Screen share.
New tech. Let's go.
All right. Let's take a look. These are the skill position players right now due to be on the team next year for the Bucs.
Okay. It's
Keyshawn Vaughn at running back and then Kenjon Barner. It's Mike Evans and then Jalen Darden, who was basically a punt returner special teams guy in his first year.
Yeah.
Scotty Miller for 1 more year, Tyler Johnson for 2 more years, and Cyril Grayson for 1 more year. So it's Mike Evans and a whole lot of nothing. At tight end, it's Cameron Brate. They lost O.J. Howard. They're going to lose Rob Gronkowski too, it looks like. And then it's somebody named Cody McElroy. Never heard of him.
You're zooming in a little bit now. I'm just noticing it's like, a little small on the screen. But new tech.
But new tech. But
we'll get that sorted out.
We will get that sorted out. But Mike Evans, he's going to be the only person on this offense.
Right.
The last time we could say offense. That, Chris Godwin came into this offense. And Chris Godwin is somebody that I have at wide receiver 16 here, and I'm looking. In 2019, he was wide receiver 2. And Mike Evans still finished as wide receiver 12 in that year.
That was with Jameis.
And again, leading the league in pass attempts. But if Godwin ain't there, Evans is finishing way higher than wide receiver 12. With Jameis, who we know, especially at that time, wasn't that great of a quarterback. He just threw a lot. YOLO balls.
Yep.
But I'm too low. I'm too low on Mike Evans. And I need to readjust my rankings.
We gotta get him higher than 15. But that's who I have at 15.
And again, that's who I have at 17. But I need to move him up.
You need to adjust. Who do you have at 15 currently?
T. Higgins.
Okay, I have him at 16. It's 1 spot down, so we can tie this
T.
up.
Higgins, he was wide receiver 17 in 2021 and a half PPR. Wide receiver 15 by average points per game. Wide receiver 30 in 2020. And in terms of air yards for T. Higgins, he was 20th in air yards. So he outperformed his air yards. He's never going to have to deal with number 1 coverage in that offense. It's always going to go to Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
And T. Higgins, if you remember, we were talking about T. Higgins as a high-end wide receiver 2 before they drafted Jamar Chase.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, is this guy a wide receiver 1? Look at him. I believe he'll have a wide receiver 1 years. Just like we saw Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both finished as wide receiver 1 in 2019. There will be years where Burrow and Chase will finish as wide receiver 1s.
Yeah. There's no reason to be anything other than completely in on the Bengals offense at this point. Firm believer in T. Higgins, firm believer in the situation that he now finds himself in. This Super Bowl run for Cincinnati can't do anything other than, boost your prospects of this offense. Joe Burrow is 25 years old, leading the team to the Super Bowl in his 2nd year. This offense is going to be good for a long time. All they need to do is just shore up their offensive line a little bit, which they can do this offseason.
This is a good O-line draft by all accounts. This is a very good O-line draft. So, there you go.
This is the year to do that. Cincinnati patches that up a little bit.
Could be scary. It already is scary.
For years to come. Good offense for years to come. Good offense to invest in. T. Higgins is going to be a core piece of that. I can't quite. It's a little difficult to move him higher than 16 right now, but it's pretty damn high on its own.
Yeah, I mean,
he has wide receiver 1
speaking
upside.
on having to readjust my rankings for Mike Evans, he will jump. Mike Evans will jump T. Higgins.
Yeah,
I
so
have
you
Mike Evans too low.
I have him at 16 right now.
16
myself,
is where I have him with my rankings readjusted there. So yeah,
so there you go. So yeah, by the Bengals moving forward, that includes T. Higgins. Yes, he's probably going to cede weeks to Jamar Chase going absolutely nuclear, but
didn't T. Higgins have like a 4 touchdown game where he went out for like 250 yards or something? Didn't he have a crazy game in there?
He had I know he had a 194 yard game.
Yes.
I think like 4 out of the past 5 games to end the season, he went over 100 yards. I think he had like 5 touchdowns in that span.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about that. You'll take that. That's rock solid production from a guy who might end up being drafted as your wide receiver 2. He has wide receiver 1 upside any given week.
Absolutely. And if anything were to happen to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins would be dare I say, a high-end wide receiver 1, which is something we got to factor in.
Could be.
Yeah.
Like a top, yeah, he's probably...
Does this guy have a
8.
chance to jump into the top 10, to jump into the top 8? Due to injury,
he'd have
T.
top
Higgins
8
does.
projection. If anything happened to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins would have a top 8 projection.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah. So I have him at 16. So I'm not too far, or you adjusting your rankings, you have him there. So we're in the same boat. With T. Higgins at 16. So let's keep it moving to 17. My 17. And I grappled with this one a little bit, but it's Terry McLaurin.
Okay. Nick has been high on Terry McLaurin for a long time, so I
understand he's going to be lower for a lot of people. The season he had was bad. By his standards, Terry McLaurin did not have a good season. Washington didn't have their quarterback all year. It's not a very good offense. It's not a very inspiring offense. It's not a very good team in general. But Terry McLaurin is a good enough talent. He may have proven that for the first time for the first couple of years of his career, everybody was calling him quarterback proof because Washington has not really had a quarterback to feel good about in Terry's time there, but he still delivered.
I do think we need to temper that a little bit because Terry McLaurin in 2019 and half PPR was wide receiver 27 rookie season, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And in 2020, he was wide receiver 21. So there was improvement, but he was still a mid to low tier wide receiver 2.
Yeah. Washington's going to be a player in the quarterback sweepstakes this offseason.
That report just came out today that Washington's going to swing for the fences at quarterback.
Yep. So if they make even a marginal improvement there, I have to think that helps Terry a little bit. So I am willing to dip my toes up and put him this high one more time. He did disappoint this year. I'm understanding that there's probably going to be a lot more people that have him lower than I do. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt one more time and put him right around him, a high end option wide receiver 2 because of the explosive playability.
I feel the same way on him. I feel like our differences on him can be explained the same way as our differences on Jalen Waddle were explained.
Yeah. Okay.
Terry McLaurin, yes, he had to deal with some suspect quarterback play for the entire season. Taylor Heineke is not that good. He also had the added benefit of Logan Thomas being out for a long time. They never figured out wide receiver 2 in that offense. They were cycling through. They tried the Curtis Samuel experiment. That didn't work. They drafted De'Ami Brown. That didn't work. They tried DeAndre Carter and Cam Sims in there, and that didn't work. Just as much as they're going to go out and try to address that quarterback position, they're going to go out and address some of these other, well, specifically wide receiver 2 in this offense, and I think that's going to take some targets away from Terry McLaurin. Logan Thomas is going to be back, hopefully healthy. he takes some targets away from Terry McLaurin. I know J.D. McKissic right now, he's a free agent. Depending on what they do there, some of those targets will be divvied out to other people in the offense throughout the year.
Yep.
Unless they replace him at that position. But I don't see anything here to make me rank Terry McLaurin higher than he finished. He finished wide receiver 25. He was wide receiver 21 in 2020. I know things didn't go his way, so I have him ranked wide receiver 22. He's still in my top 24. By talent, he would be a lot higher, but we have to. I believe we have to factor in some of these circumstantial things with McLaurin.
Deficiencies.
Right. I can't speak.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I gotcha. And I'm not gonna fight that too hard, because like I said, I understand. I'm probably the only person that is putting him this high right now.
Like if they go out and make a splash and they get Russell Wilson and Calvin Ridley on the other side of Terry McLaurin. I don't think I don't know if we're gonna see Terry McLaurin finish higher than wide receiver 21.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a splash here. The only splash that would really move the needle for me would be Aaron Rodgers.
Is if they get Rodgers and
because Russell Wilson, it's shown he can. I mean, I don't know. He couldn't support 2 fantasy wide receivers this year. So if they go out and make a splash for Russell Wilson, does he come in there and only? I don't know. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts with McLaurin for me. Again, ranking based on talent and youth, he's stepping into his prime. He's going to be 26, 27.
Yeah.
There's just enough here for me to rank him outside of the top 20. But I get ranking him inside the top 20 based off talent. I get that.
And that's, I guess, I'm just willing to buy the uncertainty a little bit more, which could backfire, but we'll see. So that's 17 for me. You had Evans here, but you moved him up to 15. So who's at 17 for you now?
And I just want to add with Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
It's not like he didn't lack for opportunity.
No,
he was wide receiver 4 in air yards, and he finished wide receiver 25. That's probably the biggest discrepancy.
Yeah, it's not good
when looking at that list outside of Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, it's not.
So
good.
I mean that really speaks volumes to me. Again, a lot of that had to do with the talent and the wide receiver dealing with double coverage because there was nobody else in that offense that was garnering any defensive attention. And I do expect that to change. But I got to see it.
Targets go up.
Yep, I got to see it.
Okay.
But moving on. That was your wide receiver 17?
17, yeah.
I already said prior to this live stream, Mike Evans was there. I moved him up.
You moved him
so
up.
Now we're looking at Chris Godwin.
Okay. This is where I have Godwin as well.
Chris Godwin finished wide receiver 19 in 2021, but was the wide receiver 12 by points per game. Super consistent.
Really came on strong, maybe like weeks 9, 10, 11, 12, or somewhere around there.
Yeah, and he was injured in 2020, but he still got to wide receiver 32.
Yeah,
and the year before that, like we mentioned earlier on this pod when we were talking, or live stream when we were talking about Mike Evans, he was wide receiver 2 in 2019.
Had a great year.
And then that was, again, with Jameis. A YOLO ball, not a very great quarterback. He just threw a ton.
Yep.
Chris Godwin, by talent, and again, air yards.
Yeah.
Do you have any guess for me where you think Chris Godwin fell in terms of air yards to get to his wide receiver 19 finish this year?
He probably didn't have a lot.
He's 41.
I was going to say probably outside the top 30.
41 in air yards, and he finished wide receiver 19. You don't do that unless you're really good.
where you're just talented.
So when looking at those numbers, again, we don't know where Chris Godwin is going. I think it's kind of crazy to have Terry McLaurin ahead of Chris Godwin. I do. Because Terry McLaurin, no quarterback, but we don't know where Chris Godwin's going to end up. In a vacuum, I think Chris Godwin's a better receiver.
He's definitely a better receiver. It's just the ACL injury suffered late in the season is like that one.
Okay.
If he were healthy, make no mistake, he would be higher.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I have him down here at 17, one spot below McLaurin. Or no, sorry, I have him at 18. I've got him at 18. Just because of the ACL. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Chris Godwin. And he's not somebody that I've ever had the benefit of having on any fantasy teams that I've ever had. I don't have him on any dynasty rosters. He's just a guy that I really like. Yeah,
he's really good.
He's really good player. He's really good. The numbers don't lie with him. He is really good.
Yep.
And yes, he benefited from having Tom Brady, who had statistically maybe his best season, but still, you don't get the 41st most air yards in the league and finish wide receiver 19 2 years after finishing wide receiver 2 if you're not good.
Nope.
Yeah. But chat, let us know how you feel about Chris Godwin. Throw something in the chat.
Yeah.
Come on now. But all right, you had him at wide receiver 17 or 18?
So I had, I have 8. You had Godwin at 17. I have him at 18.
Yeah. All right, Godwin at 16. I had Evans at 17 and moved down. Yeah, sorry. I had him at 17. You had him at 18. At 18, I have Michael Pittman Jr.
Okay. Yeah. There's reason to be excited about him.
Is he in your top 24?
He is. He's two spots. I have him at wide receiver 20.
Okay.
So not too far away. Couple spots down.
Wide receiver 16 in 2021. Wide receiver 15 by points per game. In a not very high octane offense that pretty much ran through Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
For the first 8 games of the year, he was a wide receiver 1. And then Carson Wentz's deficiencies started showing themselves. And instead of having the ceiling games, he had the floor games.
Yeah. Still was somebody who you could plug into your lineup. But yeah, he was more of a safe play. Nothing, it was hard to expect a boom game for him in the second half of the season. But
he was still consistent to that point. Right. He was wide receiver 15 in points per game. I remember season in the year, I was really needing him to come through, and he got me 70 yards through the air and rushed for 30 yards and got me over that 100 yards from scrimmage threshold. I mean, that's what he was getting you at the end of the year. Yeah. It wasn't 100 in the TD. That wasn't what you were getting. But that is within his realm of outcomes, especially if they were to find themselves to a quarterback upgrade 1 year after Wentz. And for what it's worth, the coaching staff has come out and said, we're evaluating everything, including quarterback.
Yeah. I'm not sure how realistic it is for them to move on from Wentz, but if they can cap space wise, they can. But they would have to absorb a pretty good dead cap.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just a matter of if they want to do that. Regardless of who the quarterback is in Indianapolis, there's reason to be optimistic about Michael Pittman. If you are, from the sole factor of are you a believer in the third year breakout? This is usually in a receiver's third year, generally speaking, as long as the overall situation isn't a terrible one, which it's not, it's quite good. Regardless of who the quarterback is, Pittman has flashed, and there's reason to believe there's room for growth now in his third year. So yeah, I have him right out. I have him at wide receiver 20. So
okay.
Inside the top 24. Inside the top 24. just a little lower. And that's just like a numbers crunch, I guess. There's reason to be excited for Pittman in 2022.
Yeah, he finished wide receiver 27 in terms of air yards. But again, wide receiver 16 on the season. And the year before, people were higher on him than anybody I've seen ranked wide receiver 81 coming off of the rookie year. Because he had that compartment syndrome in his leg that kept him out for a good stretch of the year. But when he came back, he showed some flashes. Just like Jonathan Taylor did when at the end of the season, he was showing some flashes of what he could be this year. Michael Pittman did too.
Yes,
so that third year breakout, I believe, is, I don't know if there has been a lot of talk about that third year breakout turning into second year breakout over the course of
these receivers are more, they're just more ready coming in.
Right. I think we've already seen the breakout. You don't finish wide receiver 16 unless you broke out.
Well, I guess my point is there's room for room for growth.
There's room for growth. There is.
Like he can expand on that.
But I think he's already broken out. I mean,
sure.
Very high-end wide receiver 2, was a wide receiver 1 for large swaths of the season, and only finished as a wide receiver 2 because of the deficiencies at quarterback he was dealing with. So,
right, which might still exist in 2022. We don't know yet.
Yes.
That might be one of the only that might be the only holdup as to why he's not higher.
So who's next on your list?
So that Pittman was 20. We had Godwin at 18. So I'll go who the guy is smashed in between those two, and it's Tyler Lockett.
Wow.
So
okay.
Yeah. Look, I know a lot of Tyler Lockett's success has been tied to Russell Wilson. So this could be readjusted. But Tyler Lockett has been a rock solid, consistent wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside any week he plays with Russell Wilson. Does that stay the same if Russell Wilson moves on from Seattle? Who knows?
Well, that stat that we threw in there for DK Metcalf, wide receiver 4 from
yeah,
weeks
it
5 to
plummeted
8.
for Tyler Lockett was bad with Geno Smith. Yes. Tyler Lockett was bad with Geno Smith.
Now, that doesn't tell the whole story because we can't expect Geno Smith to support 2 fantasy wide receivers.
No. So if there's a quarterback upgrade over Geno Smith for Seattle, I'm still willing to take a shot on Tyler Lockett. Okay. I personally like deep threats. I like guys who only need one play. Yes, they have a floor potentially of 0. Maybe not a guy like Tyler Lockett, but of that mold, they have a floor of 0. Lockett has done enough over the course of his career to the point where, yeah, wide receiver 19 without Russ might be a little ambitious, but he's just a damn good player.
He is good. He's very good. He's been a fantasy wide receiver that you've wanted on your team for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You can't help but think at age 30, with the first quarterback, he's never played with a quarterback that wasn't borderline Hall of Famer, if not Hall of Famer, Russell Wilson. That scares me enough to where he's not in my top 24. Now, if Russell Wilson was back and we could count on Russell Wilson be back, that would change for me. Because with Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett is absolutely a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. But unfortunately, I can't say that with any definitive, I don't know. I don't have him ranked in my top 24.
Okay.
Right now.
So this is maybe our first big disparity in the rankings.
He would probably be, wide receiver 28 for me.
Okay.
Because if I'm looking at deep threats, if that's the tier that I'm looking at, deep threats not playing with Hall of Fame passers, I would rather have got. I mean, he's in the same bucket with me as guys like Marquise Brown.
I gotta have him higher than that.
Okay.
I gotta have him higher than that.
So we disagree here.
Yeah, it's subject to change if Seattle's going into the season and the quarterback is not inspiring, then yeah, Lockett can come down. For now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Fair.
For now.
I just can't put him in my top 24 because, I mean, Russell Wilson wasn't able to. I mean, no, whatever. We don't got to go into it. I don't have him in my top 24, and I've given my reasons why.
Yep. All right. So I have him at 19, and then I had Pittman at 20. So if you want to take who your 19 and 20 is.
My 19 is Amari Cooper.
Wow. Okay. I don't have Cooper in my top 24.
Wide receiver 9 in 2019, wide receiver 16 in 2020. Now, he was banged up at points this year, and he also had to contend with, some lackluster play from Dak, and also at times being the second and third target in this offense. Now, there are rumblings. I believe I saw a report, and that this ranking for me, ranking him this high, hinges on this report that came out a few days ago that the Dallas Cowboys want to re-sign Amari Cooper and pair him with CeeDee Lamb moving forward and let Gallup walk and let Cedric Wilson fill that spot. On top of that, Dalton Schultz is a free agent. One of the best tight ends in the league is a free agent, and he's probably not going to re-sign with the Cowboys. They're probably going to roll with Jarwin moving forward. And because of that, if you got Amari Cooper, who the last time that he was one of the top 2 wide receivers with no bona fide third wide receiver on the team with Dak was wide receiver 9. And the last time just look last year, CD's first year, wide receiver 16, even though Gallup was there. And that was without Dak. That was without Dak because they were playing with Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush.
Right.
And Andy Dalton. I know he finished wide receiver 26 this year. I know it was wide receiver 27 in points per game. Wide receiver 29 in air yards for what it's worth, so he did outproduce his air yards to a certain extent. And I believe he regresses. I believe we see some positive regression from him, moving back closer to where he was ranked in 2019 and 2020. Versus what happened this year when there were too many mouths to feed in that offense, and he dealt with injury throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, if he stays healthy, he probably finishes a little higher than outside the top 25. Yeah.
Before this season, we were talking about Dak Prescott like a top 5 quarterback. Yeah. Because the last time we saw him 100% healthy, he was leading the league in passing.
Yeah. I mean, if Dak is if the thought process there is he's another year removed from the injury,
consolidated target share.
Does the Cowboys defense come back to the mean a little bit?
Yes.
So maybe they're not as
You think
good
Trayvon Diggs is going to catch 10 interceptions again?
No, but I think he could give up 1,000 yards again.
Yeah.
So
and Michael Parsons, incredible.
He's fantastic.
But yeah, that
Parsons
defense regresses. And Zeke is 1 year older, and we saw him really only stay healthy for 6 games in the year. I think there's going to be offensive work to go around for Amari Cooper to be able to finish just within the top 20.
Cooper is a guy who can win weeks for you. He's a guy who can single-handedly be the reason you lose.
Like Tyler Lockett, except it's a Tyler Lockett that isn't losing his quarterback.
Sure.
As somebody I know who's very high on Amari Cooper, it kind of surprises me that you have Tyler Lockett ranked ahead of him and don't have Amari Cooper in your top 24. That is a little surprising to me.
I mean, the stability is obviously in Cooper's favor. I guess it just, I don't know. I guess it's influenced by this past year where he did not meet expectations.
No, he did not.
And so, I guess that's where a little bit of the uncertainty comes from. He had his weeks, but they were not, they were not consistent.
Right.
So.
Few and far between this year.
Yeah.
I do think he gets a little bit of that consistency back, though, which is why I have him ranked at wide receiver 19.
Okay.
And we're up to 21, correct?
Who's
or 20.
Your 20? Who's your 20? I have Pittman at 20.
My 20 is Brandon Cooks.
Okay. I think I have him down at 24. I wanted to put him higher. There's a couple of young guys I do want to touch on.
I can't say enough talking. You know me. I've been a fan of Brandon Cooks for years. He had one off season where he didn't finish as a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1. And that has derailed the consensus on him in the fantasy community ever since.
I think people have come around on him.
You cannot sell him for low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 1 prices right now. He was wide receiver 6 in 2019. I don't think he's ever finished outside of the top 24 in any other year. In 2020, he was wide receiver 15. This past year, he was wide receiver 22 in points per game while playing with Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills. He looked a whole lot better with Davis Mills under center than Tyrod Taylor, and it looks like Davis Mills is going to be the quarterback moving forward. He finished wide receiver 16 this year. He can improve on that number. Now, I know they didn't have a lot of other people in that offense.
Maybe if they get literally anything that could help him.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was wide receiver 15 last year with Will Fuller in there, and he was wide receiver 16 this year. So, yeah, if they get somebody that's a little... Huh?
With no help, yeah.
Right. Now, I know that was with Deshaun Watson, so you got to factor that in. But, yeah, wide receiver 20 for Brandon Cooks, and he should finish higher than this. I just have him ranked here probably because of age, and probably because of that quarterback situation.
It's still... at the end of the day, when you're figuring out the guys that you want, favorable situations are gonna be tiebreakers that naturally happen. You look at Houston, that's not a favorable situation. So there are things out of Brandon Cooks' control that are pushing him down. That's why. But
outside of a year where he had 3 concussions in a 4-week span. He's been a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1. And I don't see that changing because he's never been quarterback dependent either.
No, he's been quarterback proof.
Yes.
I have him at 24, and I have no reason to believe he can't finish higher than that. Maybe
if he doesn't get injured,
higher.
The numbers would say that he will finish higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much higher, but Brandon Cooks has been as rock solid a high variance player as there has been.
He isn't even a high variance player. Again, that's the thought process on him because
he's a little high.
Coming out with the Saints and with the Pats back in the day, yes, he was high variance. He hasn't been high variance over the past 2 years. Not since about halfway through last year. He gets peppered with targets. It's not, I mean, at one point in time, Brandon Cooks was thought of as being one of the best deep threats in the league. And I don't think he's one of the best deep threats in the league. I think he's just straight up one of the best wide receivers in the league. And I feel like even my rankings are probably a little unfair to him. But I mean, he was consistently getting 8 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets. And I mean, those are wide receiver 1 target numbers. Even though it was on a bad offense. That high variance attribution that we're giving to Brandon Cooks, I think he's I think he's better than that. I don't think he's a high variance player.
Just looking something up. What were his? Did he have?
I mean, and talking about these two guys back to back, I feel like I should be switching Brandon Cooks and Amari Cooper around. That's how much I like Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I mean, he did have 6 games, like 5 or 6 games where, like, the output wasn't really there. But
Tyrod.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he is pretty.
I will explain that away without even looking at it, bro. Those were Tyrod games.
He's pretty. I mean, he's pretty safe.
He is about as safe as a wide receiver 2 as you can get. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably a little too low on him, but I'm at 24. There's room for growth.
Who do you got at 21?
21. This one is something I want to believe in, but there's a little bit of a question. But the question is not the talent. It's DJ Moore.
Yes. All right. We matched up again. Yes.
There you go.
We're back on track. All right.
There you go. We back, baby.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no way you can feel good about Carolina's quarterback situation right now. And DJ Moore, for most of the second half of the season, was a sit. Was a guy that you needed to leave on your bench.
Surprisingly. We advocated that multiple times. Specifically you. You spearheaded the movement on this for Face Mask Fantasy. You were spearheading, you might want to be sitting DJ Moore right now.
Yeah. And that came to pass. This is a situation that could it could go sideways one more year. It could. Because Carolina is not currently they're not in the conversation when it comes to where's a big name quarterback going to end up. Carolina has not come up in that conversation. At least not any I've seen or heard.
No. And
so,
everybody knows this quarterback class. Well, there will probably be a diamond in the rough somewhere. This isn't a quarterback class that we're particularly excited about.
No. So this could be a situation where we have to temper expectations on Moore. But with Sam Darnold as his quarterback to start the year, he was awesome.
He was wide receiver 4 through the first 4 to 5 games, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the first 4 games, he was a top 5 wide receiver. So we've seen his ceiling. Is he going to be top 5 this year? No. Well, if Carolina's quarterback situation stays the same or doesn't vastly improve, then no. But the talent is there. The talent is there. The opportunity is there. If Christian McCaffrey, remember, DJ Moore, again, produced with a healthy Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey's back, that helps their offense. It's a big if at this point. Christian McCaffrey's played half of a season the past 2 years. But if McCaffrey is on the field, that helps this offense. That helps DJ Moore.
Yep.
If we are operating, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt as far as health, which you have to do. You can't operate as if, you can never say, oh, this guy will get hurt. You can't operate that because you don't know that. You don't know that that's true. If it's all systems go in Carolina, and they'll have a new offensive coordinator this year, we've seen DJ Moore's potential. So, wide receiver 21. Do I think he could significantly improve on that this year? Probably not. But I'm willing to keep buying DJ Moore at least for the next couple of years at his cost.
Yeah, I mean, we got DJ Moore ranked in exactly the same spot. He's 25 years old, wide receiver 20.5 PPR in 2021, despite the rocky finish down the stretch.
Right.
And it just goes to show you how hot he was early in the year that he finished wide receiver 20, despite not being startable for the last 6 games.
Yep.
He was wide receiver 29 in points per game. Again, that illustrates that. Wide receiver 22 in 2020 and wide receiver 18 in 2019. We have not seen the best of DJ Moore for a full year, but what he does give you is pretty damn good safety. Now, he had the third most air yards in the year on the season for wide receivers. Do I think he gets that again? I don't know, but he could.
Maybe.
He could. All I know is he's finished as a low-end wide receiver in every year in his career, and we've seen flashes of high-end wide receiver 1 production.
Yep.
And we can look back at his career thus far and say we've consistently seen the floor for DJ Moore, and he's still finished as a top 20 wide receiver pretty much every year.
Yep.
So, yeah, wide receiver 21, we have the uncertainty that surrounds him baked into his ranking here. But, again, that feels about right for DJ Moore. The ceiling is there for a lot more, but the offense is probably going to hold it back for one more year. If not more, honestly. If they go out and if they draft a quarterback and he doesn't end up being good,
they'll go right back to the well in 2023.
If they're a smart organization. But yeah, DJ Moore, wide receiver 21, that's his floor. And he has one of the most consistent floors in fantasy football.
Yeah, we just need that floor to come up a little bit, and he's an every week starter. It just wasn't cool. It fell off hard enough last year where it was easy. We were saying, sit him. Like, whoever your alternative is, play the alternative. So we need to see the floor come up a little bit to get off of that narrative to potentially ever come up again, but the talent is there. So that's DJ Moore. So you have this is where you have Terry, right?
Yes.
This is where you have Terry. We've talked about Terry. This is where I have Devontae Smith.
Okay. I have him at 24.
Okay, so we're close on him.
Yep.
So the Eagles do not have a long-term, most likely don't have a long-term solution at quarterback. But what they do have is a 2022 solution at quarterback. We are pretty sure, we can pretty confidently say, maybe not 100%, but I'll say like 90% sure that Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback again for the Eagles. So there's a little bit of stability there, even if it's not great stability. It's stability. There's continuity there. Maybe that's a better word for it. Devontae Smith is the clear-cut, far and away best wide receiver on the Eagles. Could the Eagles sign a free agent this year? Yes. Would that maybe knock Devontae Smith down a little bit? Yeah, maybe a little bit. The Eagles are going to be, I think the Eagles are going to be players in free agency when it comes to the wide receivers. That could help Devontae Smith, though. Then he's not being asked to take the assignment of a number one cornerback as still a young player. And even if he has to, he proved he can handle it this past year.
I don't think that changes. I think he will stay the number one wide receiver for this team, or at least play in that position, and the person that they go out and get plays from the slot.
I mean, if they make a big splash, then we'll, but Devontae Smith is an outside wide receiver, and this team's currently, right now, best option in the passing game, outside of Dallas Goedert, who is not in this conversation. Devontae Smith had a rock-solid rookie season, and as the clear-cut best player right now in the offense, there's no reason to believe he can't build on that in his sophomore season. You mentioned earlier, players starting to break out in their second year because these receivers are coming into the league a little bit more polished. But Devontae Smith is a former Heisman winner, so you want to talk about polished.
Yeah, he came in polished. He's just going to be a little bit more shiny in this next
There's
season.
No reason to believe he can't build on his 2021 with a better 2022. Does Jalen, like I said, this is the last thing I'll say, or as far as repeating it, but does Jalen Hurts instill all the confidence in the world? Yeah, maybe not as a thrower of the football, but he proved good enough to get Devontae Smith the ball enough times for him to be fantasy relevant and more than a pretty solid call most weeks for your starting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he's young, 23 years old.
Yep.
Wide receiver 31 in 2021. Wide receiver 42 by fantasy points per game. Obviously, numbers that he can improve on.
Yeah.
But he was wide receiver 16 by air yards. A rookie coming in and being wide receiver 16 by air yards, pretty damn good. And
That's impressive.
He's gonna have a good bet to be able to outproduce that next year, despite the fact that they're probably gonna be bringing somebody else in.
Sure.
I, like you, think that it'll probably help him.
I think that would help him. I do.
Yep.
Regardless of who it is.
Yeah, I have him ranked wide receiver 24, so I'm a little bit lower on him. But I think wide receiver 22 is warranted.
Yeah, I like low end wide receiver 2 range, plenty of room for growth.
Yeah.
Little bit of uncertainty around him. Maybe I flip-flop him and like say a Brandon Cooks, like a veteran. But I like Devontae Smith. I like him moving forward. So that's why I got at 22. You have Terry at 22, who we already discussed. Who do you have at 23? We're coming up on the end here.
I'm on Ross St. Brown.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah.
Dynasty's wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
He just missed the cut for me. I would have him probably around 25. He just missed the cut. But damn, did he not turn it on in the second half of this season.
I mean, we like that disparity in between 2021 finish and 2021 air yards. He was 48th in air yards and finished wide receiver 27.
I'd call that overperforming in a good way.
Overperforming in a good way, and I know this was without Swift. This was without Hawkinson, and they didn't have a number 2 wide receiver really to speak of.
He had some of those weeks with Tim Boyle as his quarterback.
Right, but
they were good weeks. I understand.
Jared Cook. Not Jared Cook. Everybody hates Jared Goff. Everybody.
Goff's good enough to.
But
make
last year,
fantasy relevant wide
last
receiver.
year, Robert Woods was the wide receiver 13 with Jared Goff.
Is good
and
enough
the year
to get
before that, Cooper Kupp had his best season prior to this last season, where he finished wide receiver 4 in 2019.
Yep. Top 5 wide receiver. Yep.
And
Jared Goff is good enough.
Jared Goff can get it done with his wide receivers. He's not a good real life fantasy quarterback, but he can give you stats. And he can get his wide receivers ranked pretty high. And Amon Ra is that guy right now. He's the guy. They have yet to draft somebody or get anybody in free agency. He's the guy. He's all they have at wide receiver. He will continue to be used in the ways that they used him late into the season last year. He might not have the same effectiveness, but the work is going to be there for him, and he's good enough. And he's young, and we talk about second-year breakouts for guys.
Yep.
Amon Ra edges out Devontae Smith for me here.
Okay.
He didn't do as much over the course of the full season, but those last few games,
exploded.
Wow.
Yeah,
it was enough to get him
exploded.
to finish wide receiver 27 over Devontae Smith's wide receiver 31. I know we're only talking 4 spots here.
But less. Did it with
very high-end wide receiver 3 for the full year.
Time.
And over the past 6 games of the year, he was a top 5 wide receiver.
So there you go.
He won our good friend Liam Eels a championship, and probably many of you out there listening. I'm on Ross St. Brown, wide receiver 23.
There you go. No, and I have him just outside. I want to get him. I wanted to get him in the top 24. I just couldn't find the room. But he's right there. There's no reason to believe there's nowhere to go but up for him. Even with Detroit getting, players back healthy, should help. And honestly, it should help him. There's room to grow. But he just missed. I already mentioned Brandon Cooks is my 24. So to I guess put a bow on this at 23. I have Elijah Moore.
Okay.
So we're talking about, there's an infusion of youth happening at the wide receiver position. It's exciting to see so many guys who are 25 years or younger in this list. I'm dating back to the top the top 12. It's exciting to see so many good young wide receivers in a league where all they do is throw the ball. But I have Elijah Moore here. This is an interesting situation because the Jets are moving forward with Zach Wilson, who I feel like for fantasy purposes is like you feel okay about as far as him being the quarterback for your skill guys. You feel fine about that. Elijah Moore should move. I mean, Corey Davis, we'll see. Like maybe is still the wide receiver one by. Is it by name only? Like, is Elijah Moore the wide receiver one for the Jets?
All I know is Corey Davis is gonna be back.
He's gonna
be back for the foreseeable future, and that was enough for me to keep Elijah Moore out of my top 24, because we saw him with pretty much without Jamison Crowder, and with no Corey Davis, and with no tight end.
Right.
And he did very well.
Yeah, he did.
But I expect the team to go out and address tight end. They tried to with Kenny Yeboah. It didn't work. I expect the Corey Davis to be on the field this next year. And it's possible because they're losing Braxton Berrios, who was their wide receiver one last year for parts of the year. And they're losing Jamison Crowder, that they could go out and get another wide receiver to play in that underneath role, because it's not Denzel Mims and Keelan Cole doesn't play in that role. I really like Elijah Moore. I have enough concerns about Zach Wilson to maybe, like, I need to see him. I need to see a little bit more growth from him. The question for me is not Elijah Moore's talent. It's Zach Wilson, and how does Corey Davis fit into this puzzle? If Zach Wilson proves himself to be a competent starter to the point that he can support maybe 1.5 to 2 fantasy relevant wide receivers, then I think he deserves to be in the top 24. Again, I think it's a talent question. He has the talent to be in the top 24. I don't think he's in the situation and on the team to be in the top 24.
Okay.
But I really like the guy. I want to see more. I want to see more from this whole offense. It's a young offense that obviously, I mean, it took this year to gel. Maybe it's balls to the wall next year as soon as
I think
week
they're
one.
trending up a little bit. Maybe not significantly. I think they're trending up a little bit.
I just got to see more to have him ranked in there. I mean, I like him a lot. I like the talent. Young receiver, showed promise. But he is also a slight, I mean, he's slight of build. He's not a...
No, he's not a big guy.
No. Yeah. To me, he's in that Darnell Mooney territory.
Okay.
Which is just outside top 24.
So there you go.
But yeah, I mean, I can see why you have him at 23 or 24.
Yeah, he's at 23. I should probably move Brandon Cooks up a little bit and move some of these young guys down a spot.
Okay.
So Moore's, maybe around 23, like maybe a little bit more 24-ish. I think he showed enough this year, enough flashes. He went on both him and Jalen Waddle were like on wide receiver one tears before COVID hit, and that kind of threw things into a funk for them. But yeah, I feel fine about having Elijah Moore as a low end wide receiver too.
From weeks 9 to weeks 13, over that 5-week span, he had 5 touchdowns, and he had over 10 targets twice. So he was coming into his own, and then he got COVID. So if he continues the tear that he was on, that 5-week tear at the end of the year into next year, yes, he deserves that ranking. But again, that was without Corey Davis.
So let's see how he does.
And I need to see more than a 5-game stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it could help, but I guess there's not enough of a sample size yet of this Jets offense to know for sure. I guess it's just like it's a talent thing for me.
And he has the talent. He has the talent.
Yep.
Yep.
Just got to put it together. Jets got to put it together a little bit in year 2.
Now, I will say that having Corey Davis as your only running mate ain't a bad situation.
No,
Corey Davis isn't some phenom out there. I mean, he will be a good wide receiver 2 in real life, and probably a decent to mid to low end wide receiver 3 in fantasy when he's healthy. So it's not enough for me to keep Elijah Moore down. I have concerns about the entire offense, not specifically about Corey Davis taking any work from him, because I think he's the better wide receiver when you're looking at the two right now.
Yeah, agreed. So there you go. And then this is where you had Devontae, right, rounding out your top 24.
Yep.
So we talked about him. I guess there's one guy who probably didn't make the cut for both of us, and then this is kind of wrapping things up, is obviously dependent upon what happens with Calvin Ridley.
Yes.
Calvin Ridley is a scenario-proof wide receiver 2 who breaks into our top 24. It's just a matter of like where specifically, depending on.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say scenario-proof.
I think he is.
We saw him get wide receiver 1 work and finish outside of wide receiver 3 territory before he left as the only wide receiver outside of Cordell Patterson and Russell Gage in that offense. He was not even a wide receiver 3, and he was getting wide receiver 1 work from Matt Ryan, who, while he isn't great, can at least put up some yards.
Yeah, I think that was just
I don't know how much that what he had done prior was affected by the mental health issues that he was dealing with.
I gotta think that there was a lot of that was at play this year.
I can't say for certain that he is scenario proof.
When
we
I
thought
know
that
Calvin
coming
Ridley
into the year,
back.
we thought that coming into 2021 that he was scenario proof, and it was like he finished this wide receiver 5 with Julio Jones playing there. He might finish wide receiver 1. Let's see it. I think I could bring up the numbers for you of where he finished, if that matters.
He had a bad year. Yeah. I understand that. I understand he had a bad year. I think there were other forces at play this year for him.
Okay. That's not. I'm not taking anything away from his talent and his ability to create separation. He's one of the best wide receivers at finding the soft spaces and defenses and just and catching footballs. But I feel like
I'm willing to put him in the top 24 when I know he is coming back to play.
He would probably be 24 for me.
All right.
Unless he went to a really good situation. But if you've been listening to our live streams, you know I've been a little bit lower on Calvin Ridley than consensus for a little bit now, because I just have questions about everything. But from a talent perspective, yes. From a talent alone perspective, I believe he deserves to be in the top 24. Scenario.
There you go. Okay.
Can change that for me. But yeah, right now we don't have him in our top 24 just because he's such. I mean, we're not sure. Nick thinks that he's going to be playing next year. We got to see it before we can
think
rank
so,
him.
But for now,
for now,
I'll leave him out. I think so, but for now, I'll leave him out. But those are our wide receivers. Our very early, way too early, but still good to look at 2022 wide receiver 2 rankings. Of course, subject to change. We expect a lot of quarterback movement this offseason.
Yep.
But still a fun exercise to take a look at guys and their potential situations going into the next year. But I think that is going to do it for us. I'm a little under the weather today, but I wanted to gut this out because it's fun to come on here and talk fantasy, even if it's just John, you and I yelling at each other, creating entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I yelling at each other.
Not that there was a lot of
Terry
yelling today.
McLaurin.
I was more just like, I agree. I'm too tired. Too tired to fight. I'll fight on Thursday.
Next week. Thursday. There we go. Thursday.
I'll fight on Thursday. Yes, if anybody who's checking us out, maybe for the first time in a couple of weeks, we are not doing Saturday live streams anymore. We'll freed up our weekends for the off season, so now it's a Tuesday and Thursday cadence. Still 6 p.m. Eastern for the live streams. So whatever, there will be probably a main topic at play that comes between now and Thursday, and then also I think this Thursday might be when we look at the top 12, the top 1 through 12 for the tight ends for 2022.
Yep.
Is probably on deck. We won't do top 24 for tight ends because after the tight end 8, it's all the same. But we will do the top 12.
Yeah.
So we will get to that. But appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out. For an hour and a half.
Yep. Just as a reminder to everybody out there, we did roll out our memberships, whoever you wanna term that. But you can join as a member to our YouTube channel, and there are a ton of perks that go along with that. You can take a look on our YouTube page at that. But yeah, thank you guys for thank you guys for tuning in. Yeah, Nick, I hope you feel better, bro.
Appreciate it. I'll be all right. It's just like a little 24-hour thing, but I will be okay. But yeah, we'll be ready to go.
Hey, yo,
for Thursday.
Dirko 04, what's going on, bro?
What's going on, man?
Sorry to hit you so late, but yeah, we're signing off. But thanks for tuning in, bro, and appreciate you showing up.
Yeah, as always.
And before we go, I do want to test something because I wasn't able to.
Playing around with new tech.
Yeah, I wanted to see if there was a way that we could pin things that are said in the chat up on our screen. And I think I enabled it, but it's not working. Like specific chats, not just the generic chat. But all right, regardless, didn't work. Back to the drawing board there. But hey, thank you everybody for watching. Again, tune in with us on Thursday.
See y'all Thursday.
Top 12 tight ends. But have a good night, y'all.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.